There we go. Excellent. Well, welcome to the 2021 Candidate Forum for the Office of Councillor for Ward Métis. This is an open public forum available to the general public. All candidates running for councillor in this ward have been invited to attend. And I thank the candidates here tonight for participating and for putting your name forward for public office. That is a noble thing to do. My name is Matthew Clywett. I'm known to some of you. I ran for city council myself back in 2017 in simpler times. And, you know, I did a few of these and I thought it would be entertaining to try it from this side. So you have my sympathy and my respect. Tonight's forum is brought to you by the Rat Creek Press. The Rat Creek Press is a not-for-profit community newspaper in north central Edmonton that serves the communities of Alberta Avenue, Cromdale, Delton, Eastwood, Elmwood Park, Parkdale, Spruce Avenue, and Westwood. And I thank all of those community leagues for their support in making this event possible. Before we begin, I acknowledge that all of this is taking place on Treaty 6 territory. This is the traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, Stoney, and many more Indigenous people. And by living here and working here and doing what we do, we are all treaty people. And in what I do, I try to live up to the intent of the treaty. Now, you're going to each have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. When you reach 1 minute and 30 seconds, I'm going to put up my little hand emoji and let you know we're running out of time. At the end of that 2 minutes, if you are not done, I will mute you. Not to be mean, but because my role here is to ensure that everyone has a fair and equal opportunity to speak and to be heard. I'm not going to be fact-checking or correcting anyone's statements. This isn't a debate. This isn't an interview. This is a forum. Now, if a candidate should want to speak to something else that was said by a previous candidate, they can. However, they need to wait until it's their turn to speak. And you will still only have 2 minutes to speak. So I advise you to keep that to a minimum. Now, if anything unsafe for work should appear on your camera, I will turn your camera off. It hasn't been a problem thus far. If you should need to reach me, please send a message in the little chat feature to the Rat Creek Press. I have a lot of things coming across my screen and I may not be able to see it. And with that, let us end me talking and get to hearing from our illustrious candidates. So, speaking first, I have candidate Delel. You are muted, but I will start your timer as soon as you begin to speak. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Abdul Hakim Dalal. I have lived this Métis for the last 14 years. I worked as security before I joined the private sector for the last 9 years, where I joined different committee to ensure workers have a voice in the table. And then I joined another committee to ensure that policies and procedures are followed in the field. I became interested in politics in 2017 through volunteering to my community, where I heard people were angry about when it comes to garbage, snow removal, when it comes to crime in our community. And the more I engage with our community, I realized that it's time that we're over-policed, we're underfunded. I realized that we should have a voice in the city council. I mean, that's the reason why I became run for a city council candidate for our community. I volunteer Boys and Girls Club, where I've seen there's no funding for after school programs. I know that our community centers are not maintained. So that said it, I'm here today to run for our community, to ensure that our voice are heard. Like I said, I moved to Edmonton 14 years ago with $450 in my account. Today, I have raised 3 children, my 13-year-old daughter, my 9-year-old son, and my 2-year-old daughter. And we need to have represent our community. We should have a voice in our community that reflects everybody who are in our community. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Dalal. Candidate Kassoan.
Hello, everyone. Very nice to have everyone out tonight. My name is James Kassoan, and I've lived in the city my entire life, and 41 of those years actually in Ward Métis. I grew up actually in Beverly. My mom was a single mom with 4 children. I attended Arundel Elementary, Lawton Junior High, and then East Glen before going on to university, and then got my political science degree. And then I worked at City Hall actually for 3 years back in the 90s, and another year at the provincial level of government. So I've got experience with my political science background at both the municipal and the provincial levels of government. And for the last 20 years, I've actually been a teacher with them in public schools. And so I've been teaching mainly at the high school level. And for 10 of those years was at Queen Elizabeth High School. Been a very involved member of my community as a volunteer, working on the community league executives of Bonnie Doon and then Strathern, doing the hard work of building playgrounds, saving our neighborhood rink, the outdoor rink that was in jeopardy at one point. I'm the secular rep as well for the Strathern neighborhood now, which I currently reside. And essentially, the reason why I'm running is I think we need someone that's going to fight for this ward. And there's some really important issues that are affecting us. One of them is about affordability and mature neighborhoods. I want to see these neighborhoods to remain vibrant. And for that to happen, we need to make sure that we're infusing affordability into our neighborhoods. I was just speaking at council the other day in terms of the Strathern Heights redevelopment and zero affordability built into that development. We've seen this time and time again in neighborhoods as they're redeveloping, and we need to make sure that we have councillors on that city hall that are going to make sure that we're going to fight for affordability in our mature neighborhoods. I'm also very, very concerned about urban sprawl. I think that sustainability is an important issue, and we're seeing how the sprawl is actually.
Time, Candidate Kassoan.
Okay.
Candidate Longo.
Hi, thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Thanks to Red Creek Press for hosting this forum, and hi to everyone at home watching. Thanks for being engaged and involved in local politics. I'm Corey Longo. I'm running to be your city councillor in Ward Métis. I live in Ward Métis, I live in Alberta Ave, and have for the last 6 or 7 years with my partner and our 2 small kids. And, I just wanted to take a moment right now to acknowledge the situation that we're in right now as a province and as a city. It's been a really challenging day today with the new restrictions coming out last night. And although that these restrictions are welcome, and I think they're the right direction that we need to be going, it's been a really challenging time for a lot of folks. People are reaching out to me. I've heard their concerns. Myself and my family are struggling to know what's best. All this uncertainty has been really challenging for folks, and it's been really challenging for our communities and our neighborhoods. But the one thing that this has done for me is told me that conservative politics and this style of direction is not what we need for our ward and not what we need for our city. So I'm running to be the clear progressive choice in this ward. I used to be a registered nurse and a postal worker before that, and now I advocate for workers. I've got a great campaign that's focused on public services. So right now we're seeing a lot of cuts at the provincial level. We're also seeing those cuts at the municipal level as well. So I will stand up for public services that your family and my family relies on. I'll stand up for good jobs, that's my background, and community health and safety. So we've got a great campaign with a lot of momentum. And I think this is what the Ward Métis deserves. Our neighborhoods deserve to be seen and no longer ignored. And we need somebody who will stand up for regular Edmontonians and working families. And I'd love to have your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Candidate Longo. Candidate Townsend.
All right, thank you to the Rat Creek Press and all the volunteers who put this together tonight. My name is Stephen Townsend. I was born and raised right here in Edmonton, and I've built my life here because I love this city. Growing up in Edmonton, my family didn't have much in terms of material wealth. My mother received social assistance, AISH, because of a physical disability, and my father was not around. Needless to say, things weren't always easy for us. But I consider myself lucky to have been surrounded by friends and community members who believed in me and kept me on that right path. That path would eventually lead me to own and operate a successful small business on White Avenue while serving on the Old Strathcona Business Association. My partner and I moved to Parkdale to settle down and build our family almost 10 years ago. We love the walkability of the tree-lined streets, the character homes, and the accessible amenities, and of course, all our awesome neighbors. Since starting a community garden in Parkdale, we have both continued to give our time to the community. I have served on the Rat Creek Press Board, co-chaired the Police Chief Civilian Advisory Council, and represented our neighborhood on the Alberta Ave Revitalization Committee. While serving as the civics director of our community league, I work to bring in good developments and to address civics concerns in the community. Serving as the community league president during this pandemic, I've seen just how important community is, with neighbors rallying together and supporting each other through these difficult times. I would be honored to have your support this election so that I can bring my small business experience and my passion for building strong, supportive, connected communities to City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Townsend. Candidate Salvador.
All right, hello everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, and thank you so much to Rat Creek Press for hosting. Hello to everyone at home. I'm so glad that we could do this virtually just to keep everyone safe in these quite scary times right now. So I'm Ashley Salvador, running to be your city councillor in Ward Métis. I'm an urban planner. I have a master's degree in that, as well as a background in environmental sustainability. I'm an entrepreneur here in town. I actually founded a nonprofit organization that is devoted to helping seniors age in place, as well as multi-generational families live in ways that work for them. I do have a lot of experience at the municipal level. Through that work, I've worked directly with council, with administration, with the business community as well, to push for changes that are gonna, bring about positivity in our communities. And I do have a quite diverse background. I've worked in the housing and homelessness space. I've worked with seniors and age-friendly cities. I've worked in the economic development space as well, multiculturalism, inclusion. So for me, stepping into the role of city councillor is about bringing all of those things together. Cities are messy places, they're complex, and you need to have a handle on a bunch of moving parts. So coming to the table with that holistic perspective, I think that I can serve our communities well. I have served on a number of boards and committees in our city as well, including the Old Strathcona Business Association, the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues Safe Streets Committee, as well as the Edmonton Social Planning Council, and a number of others. But I'm really looking forward to tonight's discussion, just in terms of high-level priorities of our campaign, housing and homelessness, environmental sustainability and action on climate change, as well as sustainable development. So the way that we've grown historically in a very sprawling manner, we need to revitalize our neighborhoods and focus on mature core communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Candidate Salvador. Candidate John West.
Well, good evening, everyone. And I too want to thank Rat Creek Press for this opportunity to share who I am with all of you. My name is Liz John West, and I'm running to be your next city councillor. I really want to start with stating that I am appalled at the blatant existence of political parties in municipal elections. They are being promoted like trophies to be shown to everybody. Both NDP and UCP parties have no place in municipal politics. I'm also shocked at how current city councillors are endorsing candidates in our ward. This breaks their own code of conduct that says Councillors must not use their office to gain unfair advantage over other candidates or to provide an unfair advantage for a candidate. I too was seeking endorsement, but my team found the councillor's code of conduct did not allow for this. I did not pursue it. Folks, the next 4 years is not going to be easy. We don't know what the future holds. You need an experienced leader, someone who has your back, and not the political parties, not the city councillors, and not the developers. You need a leader who has experience managing through tough times and leading a large staff team of over 100 this past year and a half through COVID. I have experience managing a budget of 10 million and negotiating contracts with the provincial government. Edmonton is my home, and Ward Métis is where my heart resides. It has nurtured my
I'm sorry,
family
we're
for
out of
over
time,
30
Candidate
years.
West.
Thank you.
Candidate Melly.
Hi, hi. My name is Salar Melly. I arrived at Edmonton in 2009, just like Mr. Dalel there, with $400 in my pocket. Seems to be the standard amount for immigrants, maybe. I started working in a restaurant. I came here with a lot of hopes and dreams. I worked my way up to owning my own business with not knowing language in Canada, and you will probably hear me hum and haw a lot today. I worked my way up and opened my own restaurant. Me and my partner, I find a partner in Canada and settled here in Alberta Avenue. We have a little daughter, 4-year-old, and just living in this community and volunteering with different events and in volunteering for coaching soccer in the community. I realized how vulnerable our youth are, and I see a lot of problems in our ward that are affecting our communities, such as homelessness, addiction, and neighborhood safety is a big problem around here. And I'm really passionate about these issues, and I want to make a difference. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring. I'm very innovative. I'm good at coming up with ideas and solutions. So I want to be at the table and bring my diverse perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Melly. Candidate Cornack.
Howdy, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Dan Cornack. I'm running for Métis Ward. I'm running for councillor, but really secretly, I would have loved to run for school trustee. And what we want to bring to that table, I'm hoping for one of my friends actually to bring it to that table, who's much more talented than I am, but it was something that we decided is we want to teach our children the value and the integrity of saving money and how important that is to our future in the school system. I know it's a simple one and deeply, deeply Japanese style, but I mean, technology is the future, and there's many ways of going about what we're doing as, you know, as a candidate. I'm not exactly the best person suited for this job, and I met everyone at our last public forum at Bolton Place, and all of you are better suited than I am, and for many different ways. But I'm going to tell you a story at the Royal Alexandra Hospital when we had, you know, that unfortunate situation, which is no big deal of any kind, right? It's to democracy. We have to teach each other, and it's, you know, some of the people just need to be taught. I don't know everything, and I need to be taught too. I'm just learning the computer now. But for the future, at that very rally, I talked to a member of the Armed Forces, Canadian Armed Forces, elite, retired, huge.
I'm sorry, candidate
Sorry.
Cornett, you are out of time.
Thank you.
There are 8 people here who need to speak, and so I am not going to get to all the questions that are asked, but I'm going to try and hit some of the ones that are asked most often. In the interest of fairness, I'm going to be rotating who is asked the first question first. So the first question in this case is going to go to candidate Kasuan. And that question, which I saw early on here in my list, is about the exhibition lands. This is a large space inside Ward Métis to be redeveloped. What, in your opinion, or how, in your opinion, should the city redevelop these lands? Candidate Kasuan.
Yeah, so this is actually one of the things that I think is related to the sustainability of our city, and that we need to make sure that we're doing redevelopment in our urban core. And for me, the piece of the puzzle that's missing is that incentive to do that in the urban core areas, the mature neighborhoods, because what we're doing is we're giving out cheap farmland in the outskirts of the city, and that's basically allowing for developers to be able to develop in the outskirts of the city. And there's little incentive to see redevelopment in the areas like the quarters or the Northlands. And so even though the Northlands area has a great plan in place to start to see that redevelopment, you know, and we've seen this already with Blatchford, for example, right? Blatchford's another one where it's taken 20 years. And I know there's other issues with remediation of the lands and stuff like that after it was decommissioned as an airport. But, you know, the Northland site is primed for development. It's close to LRT access and things like that. And yet, what are we doing? We continue with this sprawl of the city. And so for me, I think the city needs to really start to get a handle on incentivizing that development and being creative with developers to try and make sure that we are seeing development in the areas where we already have that servicing. And it's tough work, right? It's not going to be simple, but it's essentially what will only happen if we get leadership from council. If we leave it to the market forces, essentially what's going to happen is we're going to see the developers choosing the areas where the path of least resistance, and they will then keep doing the cookie cutter communities in the outskirts, and that puts pressure on us for all kinds of reasons in terms of transit, fire, police, and so on. So we need to be have leadership on council to make sure that these areas like the Northlands and the quarters are redeveloped, and it takes it'll take a strong council to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Kasuan. Candidate Longo.
Hi, thanks so much for that question. Yeah, when I hear about exhibition lands, I think that it's a real exciting opportunity for our ward. The thing is that, you know, it's great. It's a well-positioned, well-situated area of land where it's transit friendly. There's a lot of amenities there. The thing is, you know, when I talk to folks where they're concerned about sprawl, and they're concerned about their taxes. And so we have the situation where we can develop those exhibition lands and make sure that it works for our community. The thing that I'm concerned about is that the plan in place right now is looking 20, 30, 40 years down the road. And I think that our communities deserves better. You know, we're looking at a housing situation right now, a houselessness situation, and here's an opportunity that's in the center of our core that we can use to densify, reduce sprawl, and we need to develop this in the best way possible for our community and not in the favor of developers. We've seen how this has happened in other places in the city where it's taken a really long time, and you know, it's not cost effective, it's unaffordable housing. So what we need right now is affordable housing, and we need a leader in Ward Métis, a city councillor who will make sure that your voices and your concerns are echoed in those decisions, that somebody will listen to your concerns, and that we move on this. Because like I said, this is an exciting opportunity, but it needs to work for our communities, and your voice needs to be heard.
Thank you, candidate Longo. Candidate Townsend.
Yes, again, thanks for this question. I know this has been a really big concern for people that live around the Northlands grounds. Over the last couple of years, we've seen, the closure of the exhibition lands from the Coliseum to the Spectrum, and really seen a shift in the area. We've seen temporary shelters go in, which is great. We understand that there's been an emergency situation over the last year, but we need to expedite this development ASAP. The communities around there have had to take on a lot of extra burden over the last couple of years. They've seen increased crime in the community. We've heard of assaults on women in the ravine, which is unacceptable. The city, when we are putting in temporary shelters and stuff like that, we need to make sure that there is wraparound services for the communities that are around these areas as well. So what I'm hearing from the community members that live in Cromdale and the other communities around is that we really need to expedite this process. We need to look at the possibility of bringing in private developers, but sticking to the exhibition master plan and making sure that we hold them to that, because there was a lot of community consultation and a lot of really hard work that went into that. So we need to make sure that we stick to that. We need diverse housing options that does help us stop urban sprawl, but we also need to make sure that that rejuvenates the surrounding communities and complements them. And we also need to make sure that Borden Park fits into that plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Townsend. Candidate Salvador.
Thanks so much for this question. So as I mentioned, I'm an urban planner, so I think about this a lot. And it's not very often you get a parcel as large as exhibition lands within a mature community. Typically we see these large parcels on the outskirts of town that does contribute to that outward expansion, which at the end of the day is eating into valuable farmland and is burdening us with increased taxes. As we're building out to the fringes, that requires new roads and new schools, new fire halls, libraries, pipes, etc. And that's very expensive. So being able to densify our existing communities is a huge priority of our campaign. And when it comes to exhibition lands in particular, we do need to speed it up. I think that as a city, and this is where it differs from a project like Blatchford, where the city played much more of the role of developer. The city needs to lay the foundation, put the zoning in place, which is kind of the rule book for what you can build, where you can build it, and then invite private industry in, work with developers to get things built. And I see real potential for exhibition lands to not only serve new residents who live there, but to be an amenity and a hub for the surrounding communities as well. Concordia included. I've had a number of conversations with folks at Concordia. They're growing at an exponential rate. Like it is very extensive. So being able to grab some of that land, expand Concordia, and lean into that strength for our ward is something I'd like to see as well. And when it comes to the type of housing that we can see in exhibition lands, I'd like to see missing middle style housing. So we're not talking towers necessarily, but we're also not talking individual single family homes. So things like semi-detached, row housing, sort of walk-up style apartments, basement suites, garden suites that provide a level of affordability that Edmontonians really desire. And it's not just housing, commercial uses, retail, so that this can be a walkable, transit-oriented, diverse community for all of us.
We're out of time. Thank you, Candidate Salvador. Candidate John West.
When I ran in 2017, this same discussion was happening. I went to numerous different consultations, and it's saddened to see that we have made a plan, and it is a beautiful plan for Northlands, but we have not moved an inch as to what really needs to go there yet. And so I guess part of my questioning and wonderment is, everyone knew Rogers was moving, everyone knew the exhibition land was closing. What did the city do to prepare for this empty space? Is it always after the move that they're kind of second guessing, okay, what should I do with the space? And so my hope is that we can be proactive so that communities like us that are surrounding that, we're not seeing a concrete space for years and years. Yes, the current plan is going to take 35 years to come to existence. Beautiful plan. It's multi-family, multi-generational. It has shops in it. It's connected to transit. All of that is beautiful. However, my question is, who is going to do the work? And I would love to see a partnership with the city and developers and really have a vibrant and negotiating and meaningful connection between the two partners to ensure that we could really have a beautiful space there. And I too want to see Concordia College as part of it. They're part of the discussion from the very beginning. They're interested in that space as well. And they have some space and beautiful design. And so my hope is that in my children's generation, that this project will come to flourish. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate John West. Candidate Melly.
Interesting thing about Edmonton is Edmonton is an academic powerhouse, and we have a lot of folks here who have the expertise to really help us make the best of our exhibition lands. I know for a fact from being a soccer coach that, for example, it's a very overlooked sport. Like it's, you know, we are a hockey town, and some other sports also have like football, but we can invest in other sports that are really growing in our city, so we can use that Coliseum space for that. And I think when we talk about affordable housing, putting affordable housing and exhibition lands, we should think, you know, these lowest unit prices right now we're seeing is around like $250,000 per unit. I think we need to find ways, innovative ways to bring that number really down to under 100,000. And I think with newer technologies, it is possible. There is possible to create housing scenarios where folks can, you know, buy or rent like individual small tiny homes in a very affordable price. I know from the years of living with little in Edmonton, if you can find something for $600-700, it's a win for everybody, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Melly. Candidate Cornack.
Howdy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. It's an interesting question that you're discussing right now. I'm going to continue right off where I left off at the Royal Elk Hospital. We had a conversation with a fine gentleman from our Canadian military who is retired now, but's been in Afghanistan. At this time now, he's going to be taking care of the people coming to Edmonton from Afghanistan. And I just want to pay special tribute to Shane, because Shane personally told me that, Dan, the Coliseum has been under that by us, by me, personally, myself. This is his wording, not mine. The homeless problem is out of control. There is a kitchen inside the Coliseum. This is not me. This is military, our Canadian military. There is access to washrooms. And what we would like to do is, because of our times right now, things are going to have to be a little bit more faster of a pace. We have too lazy of a society. It's just too lazy. We got to get off our butts, and we got to start saving our Native people. It's absolutely ridiculous. I walked the streets, man. I lived the streets. and I see it, and I save people's lives doing what I'm doing, just campaigning, just doing my job because I like to hoop. Hoop is a Western style thing, HOOF. Well, anyways, I'm glad I got my military story out because Shane and I are instant comrades in arms on this. And
Thank you, Candidate Cornack. You are out of time.
Thank you.
Candidate Dalel.
So I'm the only candidate who's fighting for affordable housing. Edmonton is sitting on gold. I have met families. I have met single parents. I have met single young couples who are paying 50% to 80% of their paycheck on rent. And Edmonton is sitting on gold. And I'm gonna disagree with Stephen and Ashley that private development. What happened when we had the private development? We had the LRT project was disaster. Roger Place was a bad idea for the city. So we need to start building affordable housing on the land that we're sitting on, or either we do something Montreal's doing. They're looking for the northern land. They're looking for a sport event or sport owners to come and hopefully that will bring more economic for our community or not. Either way, we need to fight for affordable housing. And I think I'm the only candidate who's fighting for affordable housing. The city spent 10 years pushing homeless on the site, the project. I remember when I was in downtown, they were pushing homeless on the side. Now the homeless are coming to our community because the city's pushed them out of the Roger Place. It's time that we build affordable housing for the homeless people. If the city can spend $600 million for advice from the rich friend, I'm sure we can build affordable housing in a community center for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Dalal. All right, first to answer this next question will be Candidate Longo. And this is a question about climate change. What, in your opinion, or in your position on what the city should do to address climate change?
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll say climate action comes up on the doors all the time when I'm talking to folks in the community. And, you know, as a person with a young family, I'm thinking about it constantly, especially after the summer we just had with all the smoke. You know, my little one was coughing and was really bad for her lungs. And I know a lot of people are thinking about their families and their kids and what kind of planet are we leaving to our children. So I think that I know that we need bold action on climate change right now in the city with every single decision that we make. And so I was really proud to release my climate action policy a while ago, and really it's centered around transportation. So transit is a really big key of my platform, and you know, we're moving people around the city in a really inefficient way and in a really cost ineffective way. It's really unaffordable for a lot of folks. The thing is that our population in Edmonton is going to grow. And what we need to do is to be able to move folks around that isn't only reliant on private vehicles. So when I've taken my family, you know, downtown to festivals, those kinds of things, oftentimes the cost is a barrier of transit. It costs way more for my family to go than to pay for parking, and plus it's really inconvenient. So I've also heard, you know, the redesign isn't working for folks. And this is what happens when we have a city council who doesn't prioritize transit, who cuts year after year after year our transit system. We can't continue to grow and spread our transit system around while continuing to underfund it. So transit is a huge piece of my platform. I'm proud to have been endorsed by the transit workers. I look forward to working on strategies with them. I also believe that active transportation and making our cities more walkable, reducing sprawl, and 15-minute communities is the way to go for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Longo. Candidate Townsend.
Thank you, Matthew. So the climate needs to be front and center in every decision that City Council makes. We've all seen it every summer now. We see smoke from the wildfires in Edmonton. It's not just smog, but smoke. We're seeing unprecedented heat waves, and we need to take immediate action. I am in full support of Edmonton recently launched a pilot project called the Clean Energy Improvement Program. I would like to see this immediately expedited out of a pilot project and into a full-fledged program that the city offers. We don't need another pilot program. We've seen great success with similar projects in other cities. This project, what it does is it allows homeowners to get financing to retrofit and make their home more efficient. So whether that's buying doors, windows, solar panels, whatever that might be, and businesses as well. So it breaks down the barriers because the financing, rather than the homeowner having to take out a loan, they're able to tie that financing to the taxes on their property, much like the neighborhood renewal programs, allowing it to be paid off over years and transferred from one owner to another. It'll break down those barriers. We also need to look at, of course, moving our transportation fleets, both our city buses and also vehicles, to electric powered vehicles. I was lucky enough this spring and through a 3-year project to install solar panels on our community league. We are now net zero, so very excited about that. And yes, it needs to be front and center in every decision we make. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Townsend. Candidate Salvador.
So this is more than an election issue for me. This is a fight that I've been fighting for about a decade now. Like I said, I pursued a degree in sustainability because I wanted to take real action on climate change. That's why I built a nonprofit that is based around densifying our existing communities, because I understand the relationship between climate action and land use and our sprawling growth patterns, and how that creates a city that is auto-dependent, which is high emissions, which is carbon intensive. So for me, Edmonton has a brand new energy transition strategy. There's 105 action items in it. The current council has approved it, and it's going to be up to the next council to follow through and implement it. Now, really high level, there's a number of different action items in there in different categories. So just to name a few, there's nature-based solutions. So preserving and protecting our green spaces in River Valley, naturalizing some of our boulevards, turning our green spaces that are underutilized into productive places. Maybe that's for community gardens. Maybe that's for planting native species. On the land use side of things, as a number of candidates have already said, myself included, we can't continue sprawling outwards endlessly. We have to make it easier for folks to gently densify within our existing communities, so we can have walkable, bikeable neighborhoods where people aren't reliant on a personal automobile just to go get a loaf of bread. And then the final one is around home energy retrofits. So making it easy for homeowners to retrofit their existing homes to be more efficient, whether that is putting in new windows, putting in better insulation, maybe installing solar panels. All of these things have to work together. There is not a silver bullet solution. So like I said, energy transition strategy, it's on the table. We need champions on council who are actually going to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Salvador. Candidate John West.
Great question, and thank you for the question, everyone. Of course, if we didn't have a healthy environment, we wouldn't have a healthy life. And I really appreciate the question. And I just want to start off with our team. We have come to the table with real solutions for climate change. And one of those is implementing a hydro energy recovery turbine at the Gold Bar Waste Management. And what it does is it produces clean energy. It's cost effective. And when it produces the clean energy, it'll offset the cost of running the Gold Bar Waste Management. And so this was done by one of our team members who is a part of a committee for the UN, and they are doing this in many, many countries. It's not very expensive, and it is there for us to explore. And I would say when we're looking at climate change, it is no longer our children's issue or our grandchildren. It is our issue for us to solve. And I would say we need to continue to enhance different forms of energy, wind, solar, hydro. In Alberta, we only use 3% of hydro energy. Manitoba uses 97%. So those options are there. We need to explore it. We need to invest money into it. And also with regards to the River Valley, I am so against the solar panels that exist. It is, it seems weird. In the name of climate change, people are putting solar panels in a beautiful, that needs to be protected in our River Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate John West. Candidate Melly.
This is a very important issue to me as well. I was just talking to a young lady I mentor, and she told me something that really broke my heart. She said, I think, and she's 22. She said, I think I will die from climate change. And that really, really broke my heart. And I told her, no, I don't think that will happen, first of all, and I hope not. Let me say, we are the only campaign that's actually taking action right now, and not using lawn signs, not using paper for promoting our campaign. We're trying to be as waste-free as possible. I think we need to fully electrify our bus fleet. We need solar panels on every home in Edmonton. I think city should, like Stephen said there, city should finance it, and we can pay through our property taxes. It should cost anyone who wants to do it. It's nothing to do it. We should have EV incentives, aggressive EV incentives for people who want to get electric cars. We need to protect our green spaces. Community gardens are great for people to produce their vegetables and source it in a more environmentally friendly way. And yeah, we need more density. We need more density in our central communities. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Melly. Candidate Cornack. You are muted.
Thank you. I'm going to basically start off where I left off. The reality of what's happening right now, nobody knows. The frustration that's out there on the streets is absolutely not right. As a human being and working with the Native people, there is something happening in the ground all across North America, and it has to do with the Native people. And it's the Natives' turn to be really brought up and respected and taught their ways. And at the Coliseum, doing the Native Hospital, everybody knows where the Coliseum is in the city of Champions, from all the way from southern Alberta, all the way up to the north. Everybody knows where it is. There'll be no getting lost in your vehicle. And then when you're there at the hospital for what we're going to be doing, which is going to happen, by the way, but what's going to be happening first is the homeless problem. And that problem is we want to talk about people losing control of things, is when your poverty level is so low, that's where pollution beyond pollution, where people are being hurt. And this has to stop right now. And Edmonton's the city to do it. I think my time's about run out.
You're a little lower.
I would like to say a special thank you for the military, which I would like to get personally much more involved with the Corps of Engineers to start off, because they're covered by COVID and they're already done that. And this is something we're having very serious talks with retired military officers at this time.
Thank you, candidate Cornack. Candidate Dellel.
I agree. I think climate change, it's real. It's costing billions of dollars for government of Canada. But I'm going to agree with Ashley. I think actually we already have plan for the city to fight climate change. But if we're gonna go with Steven's idea that we need electrical buses, then the money's gonna come out our taxpayer. We're gonna pay for it, and it's gonna cost us more unless we work with the partnership with the government of Alberta and government of Canada. If that pilot happens, I'd be happy to, if I get elected, if that motion passed my table, I'd be happy to sign that. But right now, to say that the city by itself is going to fight for climate change, that money is going to come out our hard work money. I'm not willing to pay another $3,000-4,000 for property tax because the city want to go green. I'll support the project. It's only if the government of Alberta and government of Canada will contribute to that. The city already has bike lanes. I talked to my community. They were very angry that the city spent millions of dollars for bike lanes and nobody uses. People are driving the sidewalk or nobody uses it for the winter time. So I'm not gonna support more green ideas unless the government of Alberta or government of Canada will contribute to that. And I think that's my side. I'm not gonna tell people of Edmonton that they have to pay for this project on their own pocket, and I cannot support that project. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Dalal. Candidate Kasawan.
Yeah, this is really actually a very important issue to me. I actually live in a net zero house with 27 solar panels on my roof. And so I'm super passionate about the environment. And I think it's actually something that, for me, for the city, what it needs to do is, and some people have actually already mentioned the PACE program or the Clean Energy Investment Program, which council actually just passed back in August. But, what I see that is the shortfall for the city is you're not actually, it's just one of these kind of, if people are in the know, they're going to be able to get these retrofits and stuff like that. And it's just a small amount of money that was allocated, about $12 million. And so the city, I think, needs to be much more, council needs to be much more aggressive in making sure, and it's not just residents as well. We should also make sure that businesses as well. I'd like to start to see, for example, tax relief for people that are building net zero or for people as businesses that are doing LEED certified buildings. And why can't we do that to make sure that these buildings are going to be around now for the next 50, 100 years, and we need to build them for the new climate reality. And so to do that, we have to assist homeowners, but also businesses that are willing to do those kinds of LEED certified developments and stuff like that. Also, transit was mentioned, and I think that it really comes down to affordability, and transit is not affordable. My proposal, one of them is to reduce the off-peak fare down to $2, and so we can get people shifting into the off-peak period. That will also save money, but as well, we can get more people using those buses in the off-peak hours and so on. So there's lots we need to do. We need council to then take the lead on this and make sure that we're actually doing tangible things to improve our environment and our livability. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Kasawa. First to answer the next question will be Candidate Townsend. There have been questions in this election about political entanglements. Are you aligned with or supported by a political or federal party?
I am not aligned or supported by any political parties. I would also like to, I'm not. My favorite part of City Council is the fact that we represent the people. There are no parties. I know at the beginning of this campaign, there was a letter sent out from one of the candidates here tonight asking for a secret nomination process in order to choose a progressive candidate for this ward. I absolutely stand against those kinds of tactics. We also have to be sure that our candidates are not in the pockets of developers or special interest groups or anybody that takes away their focus from the residents of this ward. And I will maintain that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Townsend. Candidate Salvador.
Thanks so much for this question. Yeah, that's been a bit of a concerning trend this time around, and I am not associated with any political party, either provincial, federal. I have been around the municipal level long enough to know that at the end of the day, you have to be able to build coalitions, work with others, collaborate, and have conversations to get anything done in City Hall. So if you're, beholden to any sort of special interests or party politics, it makes it a little challenging to do that. So I can let folks know there was actually the AOMA pledge that was sent around a few months ago that was provided to candidates as an opportunity to say, hey, I'm not going to associate myself with any sort of other party or special interests. And I have signed on to that. And I would encourage folks to, ask questions of candidates. It's a really good conversation starter. And I can also let folks know that I'm going to be releasing my donor list tomorrow, because I think one of the most important things about municipal government is transparency and accountability. So folks can find that on our website. We want to be as open as possible, so you can look forward to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, candidate Salvador. Candidate John West.
I think many of you have heard my introduction. I think it's appalling that political parties are involved in municipal elections. That's one of the reasons why I ran in 2017 and I'm running this time, is that I do not want to align myself with any political parties. I want to represent the people. We have the provincial government, we have the federal government, parties exist there. And so it is a big ethical issue for me that provincial parties, political parties are involved, as well as I am, again, as I said earlier, appalled that city councillors are endorsing people within our own ward as well. What does that say to me? It says to me that they are handpicking whom they want to work with at city council, because they know their endorsement is powerful, is what they feel. And then the candidate, of course, spends money in advertising these endorsements to tell everybody, folks, I've got a lot of endorsements from city council. Both of those from political parties and city council, I think totally takes away the spirit of municipal elections.
Thank you, candidate John West. Candidate Melly.
Absolutely not. I think our campaign probably shows that I'm pretty new to politics, and I'm not here to play partisan politics. I believe it's very important that we focus on the issues in our community and try to address those issues from within the community. And I also find it appalling that the parties try to get involved with municipal elections. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Melly. Candidate Cornack.
Thank you. On October 18th, 19, I wrote a 7-page letter to the Prime Minister, Trudeau, just before his election, knowing that he was going to win, could feel it. And with the full intention of building a hospital and the need for the Native people here. And one of the problems, and now I have no affiliation with the Prime Minister whatsoever. I just wrote a 7-page letter to him. Did he get it? I don't know. That's how many people. That's why I'm getting involved in politics now. In our new world today, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, red, or yellow. Each man will be judged on his merit of who he is, not party lines. Even though I love my Prime Minister Trudeau, and I love him to death, I have no affiliation whatsoever with that party, but I have full intention of talking to him after he wins this election. And I think he's going to do very well in Alberta. Then I hope he does. But affiliation, absolutely not. Do I love the man and do I respect him? Absolutely, 100%. That'll be fine for me.
Thank you, Candidate Cornack. Candidate Dalal.
So yeah, I heard this question through my door-to-door knocking, and I'll say it before and I'll say it again. I will vote for any party that will help our community to fight unemployment, to fight poverty, to fight crime, to fight addiction, to fight mentally ill. Unlike my opponent Ashley, who was endorsed by Conservative Party of Canada, that's not me. I think we should focus on issues facing our community. And again, I haven't talked to the Conservative Party candidate. I'm not talking to the Liberal candidate. I'm not talking to the NDP party. But I will do that this weekend. But if they can bring platform to fight unemployment in our community, and we know that if you live in 118, unemployment is real there. Poverty is real there. We know crime is real. We know addiction and mental ill are real. And I will vote for any party who has a platform for our community. I'm not done decision yet, but that's where I stand when it comes to voting for candidates.
Thank you, Candidate Dalal. Candidate Kasuan.
Yeah, so in terms of this question, I ran in 2017 as just a group of friends and some neighbors that brought together a grassroots campaign, and we were able to have a very good showing in that, and I learned a lot, and this is why I'm running again. But no, I'm not affiliated, nor I'm getting big endorsements either. I'm running, in fact, my campaign was we were approached early on to step aside so that there could be just one person running on the so-called progressive side and so on. And I think the voters need a choice, and we live in a democracy. I'm a high school social studies teacher, and I love the whole idea of us getting together and having this kind of conversation in very civil society like we're doing tonight. And so this is the opportunity that we get as citizens to bring our names forward, but also more importantly for our neighbors that to be able to see. And when someone said the other day that he said he just congratulated me for running, he said thanks for stepping out of the herd, and I really kind of like that the way he phrased that. It's like, we are taking a bit of a risk by putting ourselves out there, and just in that regard, I think it's commendable that for everybody that's at here tonight that's running, but for me, more importantly, I think that we need to give those voters a choice and put our ideas forward, and that's the merits of those ideas hopefully are what are going to resonate with voters and why they're going to vote for whichever candidate they ultimately choose. And that's how democracy works, and that's why I am happy to put my name forward, and I hope people will support me for what my campaign is standing for.
Thank you, Candidate Kasuan. Candidate Longo.
Hi, thanks for this question. I'm not sure who asked it, but I love a juicy question, and this is definitely juicy. It's fantastic. So I am not an NDP candidate. I think the question was, am I affiliated to a party? I do have a membership card. I think, that's not unusual. A lot of people who run in politics are politically engaged and politically active. And to be honest, I'm not afraid of it. I haven't been shy about it. I mean, my signs are orange. We've been talking about the endorsements. I'm the only candidate in the ward that's been endorsed by the NDP. And the thing is that my campaign made this decision as an informed decision. What I was hearing on the doors, people were asking me like over and over again, if there was an election called tomorrow, who would you vote for? What party are you affiliated with? This is what happens when there's like 10, 11 candidates in the ward. It's really hard for people to distinguish and differentiate between candidates. And so we wanted to be clear with our supporters, with the voters. We wanted to be strategic, or not transparent rather. And this is who we are. I think that this ward deserves a progressive politician. I think that this ward deserves a progressive councillor. And with me, what you get is what you see. And I want it to be clear with folks. So it's not something that I've hidden. The fact of the matter is, folks, you know this as well as I do. We have a provincial government that is doing a lot of damages to our cities and to our neighborhoods, to our communities. Somebody needs to stand up. Somebody needs to stand up for residents, for workers, it's time that somebody takes this position as councillor, as a platform, and stands up for regular folks. We'll stand up to a provincial government that is doing us so much harms and so much damage, and I'd love your support to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Longo. Okay. So first to answer the next question will be candidate Salvador. I got a question I haven't asked yet in the previous forums. What will you do to support the arts and heritage in Edmonton?
That's a fantastic question. But before I answer that question, just a really quick clarification. I am absolutely not associated or endorsed by the Conservative Party of Canada. I have nothing to do with the Conservative Party, federally, provincially, or otherwise. Now, to your point around how we're going to support the arts and really lean into our cultural strengths here in Edmonton. Now, for me, the Edmonton Arts Council is one of the primary funding mechanisms to support the artist community here in our city. Maintaining that funding going forward is going to be absolutely critical. Now, coming out of the pandemic, especially, I think there's a bit of kind of almost pent up demand. I think people want to connect. They want to see each other again. They want to celebrate with each other. So being able to maintain that funding and really support our arts and culture scene, which is so unique to Edmonton. You know, whenever I talk about why I love this city, I always say our arts and culture scene is incredibly vibrant. I love our festivals. I love our winter festivals in particular. And there's some great ones in our ward. But for me, maintaining that funding is critical. I think also recognizing that during the pandemic, a lot of folks in the artist community have been hurting. It's been a tough year, just getting food on the table. So again, being able to kickstart that is going to be important for the next council, and I'm very prepared to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Salvador. Candidate John West.
Thank you for that question. And you're right, I have not had that question, but however, I have had that question at the doorstep. And so one of my daughters is an artist, social worker, she works as a social worker, but her passion is music. And so definitely our family is very involved and very committed and engaged in the arts community. My husband's family are all artists, so we are surrounded by artists, and we recognize the importance of supporting the arts community in a meaningful way. It is the soul of our community. It is the soul of our society. We have to enhance that, especially during COVID, where loneliness, mental illness, all of that has surfaced. And I would say we need to properly fund the arts community. And this summer, just a couple of weeks ago, actually last week, the Arts on the Avenue had lovely music. It was so nice to sit outside, have something to eat and enjoy music after a long day of campaigning. We also went to the Art Walk in Strathern. And you know, there's something about watching people being creative. We were watching this one lady making a silk shawl, and it was beautiful. And she had a young person kind of doing it as she's mentoring this young person to make this beautiful silk shawl. And so I would say the arts is critical. We need to fund it. Where do we get the money? And I know Dalel will be asking that question. We would get the money from all this money that we are spending on consultations. $269 million, folks, in the last 2 years, the city of Edmonton has spent. We need to stop looking at outside.
I'm sorry, you are out of time. Thank you,
Okay,
candidate John
thank you.
West. Candidate Melly.
Just muted myself again, unmuted. Yeah, this is, well, I'm an artist myself. As you folks might have heard, I'm a culinary artist, and also I play music. So I'm very involved, and in my restaurant, I always had live music every week. Different artists came and play. it is part of our platform actually to support local art. I want to make sure, first of all, we hire 100% local artists for our city displays and such, and we don't go outsource from outside Edmonton. We have very amazing artists in Edmonton. Every piece of art in Edmonton should be done by a local artist, in my opinion. EPL has started a program where they created studios for artists to get access to for free. But unfortunately, it is a really long wait. I have looked into it. It takes a couple of months to get in for like a couple hours. I think we should expand that to every single library in Edmonton, possibly, so local artists can go into the library and record their music. And, you know, so because cost of equipment is a big barrier for our local artists, I'm sure. And also, you know, advertise initiatives like Small Spark Fund, and get people to hire local artists for their block parties. And yeah, more we liven up the art scene, it'll make a more vibrant city for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Millie. Candidate Cornack.
Thank you. Really good answers. Thank you for that. For myself, growing up with the Athabascans, the finest artists I've ever seen in my life are walking our streets here in Edmonton. Their artistry really is not very well recognized, but it really is something that people aren't realizing what's happening. You know, with the Native cultures, there's a lot of people in the world who are fascinated by Native culture. A drum like this, who I borrowed today from a good friend of mine, his name is Kenton Onikomo. Let's say, for example, you can build this, you know, taking a course at the Coliseum, because we want to do special training and special work where we're going to be inviting the world to Edmonton to see our true Native West. Now, a drum like this maybe costs a couple dollars to make. It's all made with sinew. It's all made with deer hide. It's all made, but you can go at about $200 for it. You can do a course and make your own, and have your own drum and become a drum. For example, 118th Avenue with all the Black people, they're on there, which I absolutely love. It's the new people also that are really very encouraged in what we're doing with the Coliseum. Don't let nobody, you know, it's man to man. What we're going to be doing, like in the election, due to what's happening in the world, maybe things have to be done a little bit more efficiently and very fairly and very humanely. Our organization is absolutely nothing about, it's all about democracy.
We're out of time. Thank you,
Thank you.
Candidate Cornack.
Thank you.
Candidate Dalel.
I do apologize. Somebody texted me, somebody named Rebecca. I guess you were trying to correct me on my preview question I had, and I kind of closed the whole thing. I support art. I support my son. My son loved it. We go to 118. He loved the winter event that we had in 118. I like to see that more of that. But I think Wes was right. It's gonna come out somewhere. Who's gonna pay for that, right? I mean, if the city wants to cut other events for that event, I'm okay with that. But at the end of the day, it's somebody got to pay for it. I think we already know that the city is all over the place when it comes to budget and accountability, right? So I would love to see more events in 118 and you know, attract more people to come and you know, give it to our community. But I have to be, I mean, the city already has enough platform for that event if you go on their website. So I'm not going to support more event unless the city got to pass a budget for that, and that I'm out. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Dalel. Candidate Kasuan.
Yeah, this is a great question. I think that the arts are just one of these most, coming out of COVID, this is the thing with COVID that, I think that we've all been shut in and what I found that has impacted us the most is being, shut off from some of the great things that we have in our city, like live music and going to things like the Fringe and folk festival and so on. I was just at Art Walk the other day, which is actually in my community of Strathern, and I've been a volunteer for several years at that event and so on. And so what I see for the arts is that we actually need to actually give some incentive to help these struggling artists and festivals and stuff like that coming out of COVID. So because I can't remember what the multiplier is, but money invested in arts funding has a multiplier of 3, 4, 5, 6, 10-fold. And so it's not money that's wasted because it's going to go towards local artists, and that money will then be spent in our community. But I also want to shift this just slightly as well, and also talk about your part of your question was also about heritage and that. And so one of the things also I think is about protecting heritage buildings and so on as well. And here's one thing where I think the city has done really a terrible job over the last number of decades in terms of preserving buildings and so on. And so I would like to actually see the city do a lot better job in making sure that we're preserving some of those buildings, particularly I think in the downtown area with the warehouse district and so on, and some of these other heritage homes and stuff like that as well that are in areas like the Highlands and in Glenora and so on. And we need to make sure that we're preserving some of that heritage and that. And I think the city has an active role to play that, not just the province in terms of the designation, but in helping that happen as well from the city perspective as well, which I realize costs money, but it should be done, right? So that's all I have to say for that.
Before you out of time. Thank you, Candidate Kasuan. Candidate Longo.
Yeah, thanks for this question. This last week in particular in Ward Métis, we've had such a great week for the arts. We had Kaleido Festival here in Alberta Ave, and I love living in a community where I can step outside and hear music just down the street. And I participated in Kaleido. It's actually one of the things that made us move to Alberta Ave. Because we were so excited about the festivals here. The other thing that happened this week was the Strathern Art Walk, and I went, and it was a really emotional experience. I have to say, the art was stunning. It was so beautiful, and it's been so long since I've been able to take in so much beautiful art. COVID has made it that our arts community has been really hard hit by the restrictions, by the situation. There's some of the people that we rely on the most to get through the hardest times, but yet they're the ones that are facing the biggest struggles. So I think that funding is crucial as we move forward with City Council. Decisions need to be made as COVID, hopefully, as we can start enjoying the arts more, we definitely need to show support to our artists in Edmonton who have been struggling for a long time. Like I think about, my neighbors who are in theater, and we haven't been able to see their show in a really long time. We did watch it virtually, but beyond that, we weren't able to participate. And so funding is really needed. And then the other thing, you can't talk about arts and culture without talking about festivals such as Pride. Pride Parade and Pride Festival, Pride Month is something that I've been participating in for over 20 years. It's so important. And then on top of that, Indigenous festivals as well. I think we really need to commit to the Indigenous festivals. It helps so much with reconciliation. And there was powwows canceled this summer because of COVID, and we need to restore the funding to make sure that that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Longo. Candidate Townsend.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I think for all of us that live kind of, in the communities surrounding the Alberta Ave area, we've seen directly how important art is in uplifting community. Sitting on the Alberta Ave Revitalization Committee, I was able to be part of something amazing, watching organizations come out of that revitalization project like Arts on the Ave, who bring out festivals like the Kaleido, like Deep Freeze, that help uplift our communities and bring a sense of that small town almost feel to our areas. I've also loved over the past couple of years, I watching some of the larger festivals in our city, I'm fortunate enough to get to volunteer as the former hospitality coordinator for Edmonton Folk Fest, and watching this past year how they've adapted and brought that to the streets of Edmonton. And it's not just them, it's been so many festivals, and we've seen through COVID how it brings people together. Front porch concerts, block parties. We've seen night parades. All of that just add to the vibrancy and make people feel connected in such hard times. I also want to make sure that we focus on the business community that also provides spaces for the arts. So we have organizations like the Aviary that had so much trouble opening in our city. They had to jump through leaps and bounds and hurdles to provide a music venue that is so beloved by our community and the rest of Edmonton and the art scene. So having those live music venues is crucial as well. Thank you. Thank you, Candidate Townsend. All right, to answer this first question will be Candidate John West. This next question, pardon me. There are a large number of vacant commercial spaces in this ward. What would you do to help businesses fill those spaces?
There are many, not only on the north side, but also on the south side. 101 Avenue is looking to revitalize. One of the things that I've been doing is meeting with business improvement associations. I met with Alex in the Beverly area to better understand some of the complexities around small businesses on the avenue. And one of the things that people may not know, that if you have a business improvement part of the business improvement organization, that you have access to grants that you may not have access to from the city to improve your business. And so I would say that we need to, for 101 Avenue specifically, I've talked to a couple of the leaders there. If there's any bandwidth for the commercials and for the businesses to get together and have a business association. In Ward Métis, we have currently 3 of them, one on the avenue on the west side, one in Beverly and one in the French Quarters. And I'm sure that for 101 Avenue to revitalize that whole area, which, you know, many people have been trying to do for, I don't know, I think at least 10 years is what I've heard. And so I think that would really bring together all the different shop owners and local businesses and small businesses in that area.
Thank you, Candidate John West. Candidate Melly.
As you know, I'm a business owner and I know the struggles of business, doing business. I believe our mature neighborhoods, core communities, where there's also a lot of vacancies, have been affected by a lot of different things that hurts business. We need to clean up a little bit in these areas and try to address the nuisance issue to make these areas more attractive for business. We also need to increase density in our higher traffic areas, and that will bring more business for businesses who open up. Let's just be honest, there isn't enough density and a lot of businesses struggle because they don't have enough customers. So that will be, I think, a good solution for that. And we also need to invite innovation to our city and try to create incentives for companies to start up in Edmonton. Companies in tech sectors and in software sector and things that we send a considerable portion of our revenues. For example, food takeout goes to a company in England. we need to, I think, create incentives for local businesses to pick up some of these innovative services. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Melly. Candidate Cornack.
Thank you. I would like to say that it's going to take time because first off, we have to nip COVID in the bud. That means people have, the entire North is maybe approximately maybe 20%, maybe 25% vaccinated. This is absolutely unacceptable. What we're talking about here is right. Don't get me wrong. Right? I mean, all these candidates are better qualified than I am, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. But what we're doing is we're doing this for democracy, and if I can be elected, this is good enough for me. Do I have? That'll be fine.
Thank you, Candidate Cornack. Candidate DeLell.
I'm the only candidate who has a plan for supporting small business in our community. I think this is the perfect time to support small businesses, but we can't even do the simple task by keeping our roads clean and keeping our community safe. How can we attract other people to come and invest in our community? Can we do the simple task of keeping our roads safe? So, But my other question is, the city of Edmonton and the Edmonton Police Service has shut down Black business owners. I met Black business owners that were forced to shut down their businesses before the COVID-19. So how can we attract people to open small business in 118 when we have the city and the Edmonton Gang Unit are shutting down small business owners? I disagree with that. And I was going to ask Ms. West earlier today, but I'll ask that later. But the city, it's their bias against when it comes to small business owners in our community, when it comes to Aboriginal business owners, when it comes to Black business owners. And I met a lot of people who were very frustrated. The city is so biased against them. So how can we build a community when we just picking certain people to open business in Alberta Avenue? And I'm disgusted by that. But I'm the only candidate who has a plan to invest in our community, to bring more people to come and do their business so we can build a community that reflect all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate DeLell. Candidate Kasuan.
Yeah, just to reset here just a little bit. So this was actually a question about vacant commercial space, right? So I'm going to answer that question that was asked, right? So vacant commercial space is, again, because of COVID, is something that actually is been, it's overwhelming in sense that we've got so much vacant commercial space in the downtown and other areas of the city I see along White Avenue and so on. And so how do we address that? And so I think there's a number of different things. One of them, I think, is in terms of the city being a little bit more flexible, also a little bit more vigilant in terms of permitting and so on, so that the city can start allow for some creativity and allowing the permitting in various areas. We've seen some of this already in terms of like widening sidewalks and allowing for a little walk around so you can have street patios and things like that. So those kinds of things I think are important, but as well just to be able to have the mindset at planning to make sure that we basically have the backs of these business owners and making sure that we can do some of these creative things so that these businesses aren't being hitting a wall, basically a bureaucratic wall, so they're not able to then get their project off the ground. And so if there's some flexibility, basically think of it almost like a concierge, if you will, where planning can make sure that they can walk through some of these business owners who may be starting a business without a lot of experience and need some of that know-how to be able to do that. So I think there's lots of things that the city can be doing to make sure that it's in terms of permitting and so on. And and we've seen this also in terms of neighborhood renewal and so on, where we've got areas like Bonnie Doon, where I was living for quite a number of years, where they've seen neighborhood renewal and incorporating some of that renewal so that we can actually create these little nodes of businesses like the French Quarter and so on, so you can get great places like Cafe Bicyclette and so on. And that takes some planning and forethought that needs to happen in conjunction with your neighborhood renewal.
Thank you, Candidate Kasuan.
Yeah, Thanks for this question. So I'm all about vibrant communities and attracting young families to our communities. And you know, what does make that happen is when we have thriving small businesses. And I know we've got several really trendy businesses in our ward that I love to frequent, that people love to frequent, and we need to make that more possible. I do know, you know, that driving down 118th Ave and seeing vacant commercial properties and boarded up windows is not attractive. It's an eyesore to the community, and it doesn't attract, it doesn't bring people in. So one of the things, you know, we've been seeing this is a concern on 118th Ave. We've also been seeing, you know, derelict housing as well. So I released with my housing policy, I released policy to look at incentivizing the use, the renting out of these spaces to make sure that we attract businesses and attract folks to our communities. So that was one thing. The other thing is the flip side of that. You know, it's about promoting businesses that offer good jobs with living wages. So I put forward some good jobs policy just a couple weeks ago. And, you know, there are small businesses out there that are stepping up, that offer living wages and benefits. So we've got a really high unemployment rate right now in Edmonton. We need to promote those good jobs so we can help people through COVID and lift people up through poverty. The other thing is with my Indigenous policy that I put out, there's been some Indigenous businesses popping up in our neighborhood, and I've loved to frequent those. You know, we need to, yeah, you bet, Dan. We need to make sure that we can expedite those processes and help permitting and approvals go by swiftly. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Longo. Candidate Townsend.
Thank you. Yeah, so I as Corey mentioned, you know, seeing boarded up storefronts on lots of our major commercial corridors, including Alberta Avenue. And it's not just because of COVID. We have property owners that sit on properties. We have the Alberta Avenue Theatre, which could be an amazing gathering place. I have so many ideas of what we could do for that. But the fact is they sit on them and they're waiting for their big payday. So they're waiting for their, well, in this case, their $4 million payday, which might or may not happen. So the city needs to look at ways, including maybe year-over-year property tax increases for derelict and abandoned properties. We need to look at different ways that we can get these property owners to unload their properties. We see the same thing in downtown Edmonton with vacant lots everywhere when we're talking about building density in our city. I had the honor of sitting on the Old Strathcona Business Association because I did own a business on White Avenue. And it's not by accident that White Avenue is what it is today. It took a group of community members to start up the Old Strathcona Historical Society. And what they did was they went in and bought old derelict buildings with government grants and converted them into viable businesses. We need to see things like this happening throughout our city. I want to see stuff like what's happening in the Highlands District and what's happening in Ritchie, happening in places like Alberta Ave, 101 Ave, Norwood Boulevard. These are all prime spots to have thriving businesses that bring people together. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Townsend. Candidate Salvador.
Thanks so much. So I'm not going to repeat some of the really good points that have already been made, but I'm going to talk a little bit about how we kind of got here. You know, COVID definitely made the situation much worse, but looking at Ward Métis, it's composed of all mature neighborhoods. And if we look historically, for the last 40 years, a lot of these neighborhoods have experienced population decline. So a lot of folks that I meet on the doors, they remember a time when there used to be corner stores, when there used to be, you know, little shops, maybe a bakery, a butcher in the center of their community. And over time, we've lost those key amenities. And we do see a lot of vacant storefronts. So for me, you know, there's a few tools that we have. And one of the primary tools is actually zoning. So Edmonton has a brand new city plan, and the city plan itself is kind of this visionary document. It talks about how we're going to achieve, you know, vibrant, walkable, amenity-rich communities. And it's actually identified specific main streets like 118th Ave, like 101, as places where we want to see a little bit of increased density. We want more people living, working, and frequenting businesses in these areas. And we need enough people to actually support them, enough customers to support them. So that's something that's coming to council in 2022, the zoning bylaw renewal. That's an opportunity to kind of lay the foundation so that we can start to see that redevelopment and that revitalization that our communities so desperately need. And I'm going to touch on one other thing that hasn't been mentioned yet. In conversations that I've had with our business improvement associations, one thing that consistently comes up is actually the safety of the district. And it's interesting. I would love to see a more systemic approach to things like housing and homelessness. We're also facing an opioid crisis right now. People are hurting, people are dying in our city. And being able to bring, supervised consumption sites back, that is imperative.
Lori, we're out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Salvador. To answer the next question first will be candidate Melly. It's been suggested that a portion of the police budget could be taken away and spent in other ways to promote community safety. What do you think about that, and how would you promote community safety?
Well, as some of you folks might be aware, our police budget is 15% of our city budget. It's around $450 million. I was just on a meeting with this organization called REACH. This is an organization that does a lot of work in our core communities, and they do actually all over town. I shouldn't say that. And their work is to help different organizations work together to address homelessness, addiction, and these kinds of issues that we are struggling with currently. And this organization gets under $10 million in funding, and our police gets $450 million, and consultants get $300 million or $700 million. I have heard different numbers on that. Our LRT gets a $4 billion budget, but when it comes to our safety of our core neighborhoods, I think it is way underfunded. I believe we need to do more, much more, to address these issues. And I think, yeah, for sure, police budget, we can probably cut on a lot of administrative work. We can get more efficient, integrate more technologies, and leverage what's available to us to shave some of the costs from our policing and make this kind of social services more available. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Melly. Candidate Cornack. Candidate Cornack.
Howdy. Working with on a regular basis, especially when you're seeing incidences and just working with them. And one thing that we brought out is we're doing it. Young are absolutely bad. Of course, people off the streets, and we have to go to the style of looking at it, that we got to give these people some basketball. We got to give them some. Native people love the game. They love sports. There's so many different games that we don't know about. For example, a Seneca game, which is a tribe in the eastern, Canada, that used to be called the snow snake, and they would take approximately a 5-foot piece, 1-inch piece of wood, and throw it down a track that was beveled out, maybe 16 inches and 16 inches wide. Well, some people could do it for 1,500 feet. So just an amazing game. And the game that I've heard about, I'm not mentioning because they're, are just so many. And we have to give them something to do. And sport is where it's at. And sport is where it's at. That'll be fine for me.
Thank you, Candidate Cornick. Candidate Delel.
Finally, a question I can answer. So let me start from the beginning. So if you Google me, you'll see that in 2013, oh no, 2017, correct me, 2017, I went to the Edmonton Police Commission. I fought for Aboriginal police officers, African descent, LGBT community, and the Muslim community in our community. We know that 80% of Edmonton Police Service are Caucasian, and they're serving the community that are diverse. I've been arrested. I've been stopped 48 times for just looking at cop funding 118. I've been arrested twice in a bar by the Edmonton Gang Unit. And then when I filed a complaint against the police, they shut up my house. I've been pulled over last week. I got pulled over driving a motorcycle. So I like to see the money go toward community policing. I like to see community police. I want to show these officers are from the community they serve. None of these officers who are patrolling 118 and Abbotsfield are from the community they're supposed to live in. I like to see more event with the community. I like to see more police officers get involved with the youth, whether it's sport or whether it's through event. I would like to see more peace officers with that budget so they can patrol transit, LRT in that area so people feel safe. A lot of people don't feel safe. And in our community, crime is a big issue through in my door-to-door meeting. I would like to see more diverse police department. I haven't seen one. I've been here for 14 years. I have not seen one police officer that look like me or my kids. So I would like to see that budget of the Edmonton Police Service go toward community policing. I'd like to see police officers who engage with the community so we can cut crime in half and we can build a trust. There's no trust in our community. I don't trust the police. I'll be honest with you. I don't trust the police. Nobody trusts anybody I met in our community. They don't trust the police. I don't trust the police. And imagine that how many times they lock me up for nothing. So I like to see that money go toward community policing. I like to see that. I would like to see that budget go toward there.
Thank you. Thank you. Candidate Kasua.
Yeah, thank you for this question. Yeah, so I'm not in favor of defunding the police, and there's a number of reasons for that. But primarily, I just think that the institution, the police, are part of our community, and as such, they do some important work. And let's face it, as police officers, they are tasked with an incredible, it's the enormity of their job and how much they are challenged every day because their job is different from day to day, and you don't even know when you wake up one day what your job's going to entail. And I think that's an incredible demanding component of policing. Does that mean that the police does everything perfectly? They do everything perfectly? No. But I think that if we take money from police funding and start trying to fix other problems in our society, which there are for sure. I'm very supportive, for example, of safe injection sites. I think we have to address housing, as we've already mentioned in previous questions and stuff like that. So there's a myriad of things that need to happen in our community, but I don't think we solve that by defunding the police. I think the police have to be in partnership with our community to be able to make, I've got good friends that are on the police force as well, and I know some of the challenges that they face and so on, and that doesn't mean there doesn't need to be more diversity in the police force as well, but we need to make sure that those police officers are given the resources that they need to do the very important work that they do in our communities. Because I was door knocking in various areas of the ward, and it broke my heart to hear not just one door but multiple doors in some communities where safety becomes the number one issue, and people are scared to even answer the door, and it's not just because of COVID. So these things are things that we have to look at as a community, and I think the police have to be part of that partnership in addressing those safety concerns that we have as citizens of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Kasuan. Candidate Longo.
Thank you so much for this really critical and crucial question, especially now after the year and a half that we've been through and some of the horrific racist things that we've seen. I want to start by saying that everyone deserves to be safe in our communities. Every single person deserves to be safe. And the thing is that, we had a lot of people step up and create a report that guides the city, and it's called the Believe Us report. And that report was filled with a lot of people who are really passionate about this, and a lot of BIPOC folks, a lot of Black and Indigenous people of color. And I feel like those are the people that need to their concerns need to be amplified. We need to gather behind those people. So that's why I've been really clear about implementing the Believe Us report. That report does call for a freeze on police department budget. The thing is that City Council has funded the police department, given increases year after year after year. There's a formula actually built in. And I think, you know, it's very clear in that report. The police commissioner himself even said that 30% of the resources that go to the police department aren't actually used for policing or criminal activity. I've seen it in our neighborhoods. I've witnessed it. I have Indigenous siblings, and I've seen how you know, police treat them differently when I'm there, and I've heard the interactions. I don't think that people in our communities who are experiencing mental health episodes or, you know, substance abuse issues need to be arrested. I don't think that's the right thing. I think that's further traumatizing, and it's really costly. What I do think we need is more care workers. Everyone deserves to be safe in our communities, and those people in particular, the people that are having challenges, they're doing desperate things in desperate times, and we need more care workers. We've got a great program in the city that puts care workers and social workers at hubs and libraries, and I'd like to see that kind of program expanded. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Longo. Candidate Townsend.
Thanks again for the question, Matthew. So I found myself the victim of a hate crime at one point. I was assaulted while out on a date with my partner in a restaurant, right in the middle of a restaurant. So I found myself after that sitting on the police chief's advisory committee after somebody had reached out to me about ways we can improve in policing in our city. I sat on that committee as a co-chair for almost 10 years working. We would work on things like training manuals, diversity training, recruitment processes, all different things to help build a better police force in Edmonton that truly reflects the diversity of our city. I believe that when it comes to policing, we need to make sure that we're using the right tools in the right situations. Police are not always the right option, depending on the call, but we need to make sure that we support agencies like the 211 that we have. We need to make sure that when people call there, they're not waiting 45 minutes to receive assistance for somebody in distress. We need to have more of a focus again on community policing in our city, because having the police integrated into our communities builds better relations and a safer environment for everyone. We need to make sure that we're supporting community groups like the Bear Clans and other organizations that are on the ground doing a lot of hard work in this city right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Townsend. Candidate Salvador.
Thanks for that question, Matthew. So I'll first start by recognizing that you know, over the past year and a half, a lot of racialized and marginalized folks have been telling us that it is not okay out there. They are hurting. And when it comes to the police budget, you know, that is our biggest line item. And I think it's absolutely fair to be saying, are we getting, you know, a real return on that investment? And not necessarily a monetary, but in the form of better health and well-being and the safety of everyone in our communities. And you know, just actually picking up on the previous question where I was talking about systemic solutions, we need to see safe consumption sites back. We need to see things like permanent supportive housing in our communities with wraparound services, mental health supports, addiction supports, employment supports, so people can genuinely start to recover. In many ways, we've kind of criminalized homelessness in our city, and that's not okay. And, you know, being able to, again, on the systemic solution side of things, properly fund social supports, fund community-based policing models. That's where I'd like to see us go. The Community Safety and Wellbeing Task Force has put forward a number of really, really excellent action items, but it is going to be up to the next council to, again, do it. So having the report on the table is fantastic, but we're going to need voices on the next city council who have the courage to say yes to that. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Salvador. Candidate John West.
Thank you for this question. I would say I'm one of the few candidates that are running that has a police policy. And I would encourage everyone to go and look at my website on what we're really endorsing. My sister became a police officer in the 1980s. South Asian woman. She was the first one on the police department, and she has retired now. And at that time, there was a lot of Edmonton Journal articles were done about my sister because she was the first woman of color from India on the police department. Today, we have 10% of people of color on the police department. We haven't moved that dial. 20% of them are women. We have not moved that dial. There have been numerous task forces existing over the last 30 years on how do we do this well. Well, some of us are we're tired because some of my children's friends come from all walks of life, from Black to Indigenous to Latino. I hear their stories and how they are being engaged and treated by the police. It is not okay. The Believe Us report was fantastic, fantastic. City Council passed 13 out of the 14 recommendations, and they left behind the one that's 14, which has to do with the budget. They did not want the police to have accountability for the money that they get automatically every single year. There's something wrong with that. And I'm a strong advocate, as you can see from my platform, that we need accountability, especially in positions of power and privilege. If that is taken away, things go sideways. We know that.
Lori,
We've
you
seen
are out
that.
of time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, candidate John West. All right, we are very low on time, but I'm going to try and sneak in one last question. So I'll give you 1 minute to answer this one. And please try and use that minute wisely. Do you support safe injection sites in Ward Métis? Candidate Cornack.
100%. A person has a problem in his life, and right now is due to basically an inferiority complex. It's nothing more simpler than what's going on with the natives that are living on the streets, the native people that are living here in Edmonton, is that over and over you're being told something negative and you become that. It's proven. If you go for plastic surgery and you say you had a bad one, you got really cut up really bad, in a car accident, well, you feel pretty good after, right? Well, let's do that for the native people. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, candidate Cornack. Candidate Dalel.
I agree, but I think 118, we took a lot of that. I think it's time for somebody else to deal with injection center, because I think I talked to my my supporters, and a lot of people are angry because we're taking all the youth, runaway youth. We have runaway youth, and what we have halfway houses in our community. We have one injection, I believe, in our community. I think it's time for some different area of the city to take one of them for us, and I'm out.
Thank you, candidate Dalel. Candidate Kasuan.
100% I support safe injection sites. They're in our community. I've spoken to one of the public health nurses, and one of the stats that I think is important to think about is that 35% of people that use those safe injection sites are likely to get treatment. And that number may seem low, but 35% is better than zero. So if we can turn around for 35% of those people that are on the street addicted to drugs, then we need to do that. And so I think the safe injection sites are a pathway to help people that are really struggling. I was also talking to a fighter the other day who they responded to a call, and the woman was clearly in distress. The ambulance showed up, and then after they realized that she was fine, except she wanted to then get herself off the street, she couldn't do it because there was no one to actually support her after that. So that's another issue, but certainly the safe injection sites are super important to help that.
Thank you, candidate Kasuan. Candidate Longo.
Absolutely, I support safe consumption sites. And I just want to say, I was a registered nurse. I know that these sites work. Harm reduction saves lives. Absolutely, 100%. We're seeing an opioid crisis right now in Edmonton, 4 deaths a day. It's absolutely heartbreaking and alarming. It doesn't need to exist. It doesn't need to happen. I've been really vocal about this issue. The city needs to step up. The community leagues have been stepping up, offering naloxone training. We need to get kits in the hands of people. We need to have trainings. But folks, once again, the provincial government has closed the safe consumption site. Healthcare is primarily a provincial issue, but we're seeing the impacts and the effects on our cities, on our communities, and we need to elect the clear progressive choice, somebody that will hold provincial government to task, and I'd love your help doing it. We can get there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Candidate Longo. Candidate Townsend.
Thank you. As others have said, harm reduction saves lives, clean supply saves lives. We have to make sure that we are supporting the most vulnerable among us. Nobody wakes up one day and is like, oh, I'm going to become a drug addict when I grow up. It's a series of traumas and different events in people's lives that lead them down these paths. And we need to be there for them to make sure that they don't die. And so that we can make sure that we provide them the supports that they need. We need permanent supportive housing, and we need the wraparound services that go with that, mental health addictions, job supports, everything like that to keep people safe. But we also have to make sure that each community only has so much capacity within it. We cannot put all shelters, all consumption sites in one area. We must make sure that this is
Sorry, you
spread
are
out.
out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Townsend. Candidate Salvador.
Thanks so much. Well, I've already said it twice tonight, but I'll say it again, that absolutely, yes, I support safe consumption sites. And the question was, do I support them in Ward Métis? Yes, I support them across the entire city. I think that every ward should be thinking about integrating safe consumption sites into the urban fabric. I think that historically we have seen a bit of a concentration of safe consumption sites, social supports, shelters within sort of the downtown urban core. It's incredibly important that we have a decentralized model. That's what's conducive to recovery and well-being. These folks are our neighbors. They are our community members too. We need to start acting that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Salvador. Candidate John West.
I have 2 daughters who work at the Bissell Center. They worked there during the COVID. And honestly, it was tragic, the stories that they came home with. It was basically, they weren't just housing people, they weren't just serving coffee, they were saving people's lives. And the trauma that the staff would go through, they would carry their naloxone and they were always doing CPR. And it's outrageous that the provincial government is closing these sites because they do save lives. It is unbelievable. And so for sure, we need to keep them open. We need to have more of them that our people are suffering. And one of the neat things about what the inside look about the work at the Bissell Center is my daughters come home, and when someone passes away, it's not only trauma for them, their colleagues.
I'm sorry, you are out of time. Thank you, Candidate John West. Candidate Melly.
The answer is yes, I support self-consumption sites, but not in Ward Métis anymore. Like we have too much concentration of these services in our ward, and I think we need the city, the other parts of the city need to share the burden. Also, what's more important than injection sites is to get folks who need coaching. You know, there's so little words of encouragement in this world. I think personal coaching is an important step to take. And also it takes 60 days to get to some of these programs. And guess what happens to an addict who needs to wait 60 days to get services? They're back on square one. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Melly. And look at that, 9 o'clock on the nose. Not too bad. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Thank you for everybody at home for tuning in and being engaged. I'd like to thank the candidates who are here for being here and for running for public office. It's a noble thing, and I appreciate your energy and all the sacrifices you've made to do this. Well, that is it for this evening. I wish you all the best, and I'm very excited for this coming election. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Good evening. Thank you for